Good evening. I'm so sorry that we're starting a little bit late. It's consistent with our experience last night at City Council. We went till about 12:30 in the morning this morning, and the issue on the table was the YWCA, the Julia Morgan Historic YWCA building, and it was really kind of frustrating because we didn't really have a consensus on the part of the council. But as you may have heard, the mayor moved to, I'm so sorry, the mayor moved to have the staff come back with a financial plan to make the YWCA a permanent supportive housing facility aimed for women and foster kids. And I supported that motion, even though I don't think it's the perfect use of the space, but there comes a point where you need to move forward. The city bought that property in 2012 for $8.3 million. Present value today of those funds, using conservative estimates about growth, is about $12 million. Cost to rehab the building, probably $20 to $30 million. And you'll remember that we had a perfectly fine proposal called the Kimpton Hotel that was going to go in there. They were going to rehab the building. We were going to have local jobs and economic development and transit occupancy tax and all the rest, and my colleagues voted that down. So in any event, the motion failed, and then, well, it was evident that it was going to fail, and then my colleague Margaret McCostin made a substitute motion to send out an RFP to developers, sort of to tell us what to do. So I was really disappointed because at this point we should not be saying, you know, maybe this, maybe that. And in fact, I asked staff to consider having a policy where if we're going to invest that kind of money in real estate, before we close the transaction, we should have a fairly good plan for what we're going to do to it. Now that property is unique, it's historic, it's part of the Civic Center Plaza and all the rest, so perhaps there will always be exceptions, but it was a long night. So, but welcome. This is our district-wide town hall meeting, which we try to do a couple times a year. And then remember, we go around the district and do neighborhood town halls in each of the 4 quadrants of our district. So I do want to really express gratitude to not only the RBOC, and Daryl Dunn is on the agenda a bit later, but to all of the folks that work so hard down here. And I would like the proprietor of the Brookside restaurant, Mark Rapisardi, to come up and tell us what's Taco Tuesday anyway. Mark Rapisardi, and this is Brendan.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brookside if you haven't been here before. My name is Mark Rapisardi. I'm the Director of Operations for Levy, who is here at the Rose Bowl campus and Brookside and the Rose Bowl concourse. This is Brandon O'Neill. He's our GM of Brookside. And Brandon's going to tell you a little bit about the restaurant as well tonight. Thanks.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see so many smiling faces out here enjoying Taco Tuesday. Hopefully you got a chance to come and enjoy Dollar Tacos. It's on Tuesday. It's great to see everybody. And, you know, our hope is that when you think of a neighborhood restaurant, you really start to think of Brookside. We're doing some amazing things in there, like you saw tonight, and live entertainment on Fridays. So if you have any questions, please feel free to see me. I'll be in the back. We hope to see you around Brookside because we're doing some amazing things. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, anytime, please. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you again so much. I'll tell you, I see some of my firefighters and cops in the back of the room. You will not make any money on the Dollar Tacos with my guys back there. So, and I'll introduce the chiefs in a bit. So, again, I want to talk about some of the other issues that we're working on quickly, and then get to our presentation. I want to leave plenty of time for you to ask questions or express your opinions. You know, there certainly never seems like a time in Pasadena when we're not terribly busy. And our city manager, Steve Mermel, is here tonight. Where's Steve? There he is in the back. Can we give a round of applause for our great city manager? So we talked about the YWCA. I'm extremely excited about the opportunity that we have down by the 710 freeway stump, the ditch, if you will, the trench where the 710 tunnel will not be built and the freeway will not be extended. So many of us in this room, and certainly our office, have been working on that for decades now, and so it's terrific, and it gives us great opportunity to really take those. I think there's some 35 acres or so, and there's a plan that you've probably seen from the group that studied that, and some really outstanding opportunities and ideas there. So I'm excited about that. We're dealing with Caltrans on the Caltrans homes and repatriating those back into the neighborhood, into the community, and also hopefully taking those arteries, Pasadena Avenue and St. John, and ultimately turning those back into neighborhood streets, which is what they should be. So very exciting there. We are working on broader issues in the Arroyo. My friend Doug Cranwinkle is here. Doug, can you just give a wave? There was a kickoff sort of event over the weekend for the One Arroyo group, and Doug and his straight man, Bill Bogard, have been working really hard on that, and we're so grateful. And actually, I think some projects are coming forward now that are part of that greater vision in terms of some signage and some trail restoration. So that's super exciting. We are really confronting issues of homelessness in Pasadena, as are all cities, basically. It's really interesting. If I travel, which I do from time to time, if you talk to people really in any city in the U.S. and frankly the world now, when you ask what are the issues facing your city, they tend to be the same ones that we see in Pasadena. And homelessness is certainly one of those. And going back to last night, I think the real problem that we have with homeless is the service-resistant population, the really long-term homeless who have severe mental health, drug abuse, and the like, substance abuse issues. And so that was the appealing thing about the mayor's motion last night, to perhaps really get a handle on that a little better than we have. The homeless count, I think, is coming out. My sense is we're going to see higher numbers, and particularly higher numbers of those really service resistant. And you know, service resistant, I use that phrase all the time. It may not be the most apt because there just aren't the services available for the population. So that whether or not they would be reluctant or enthusiastic about seeking those services if they don't exist, I'm not sure it's fair to call them service resistant. Traffic and congestion is another issue. You go anywhere you go to any great city in the world, Seoul or Paris or London, they're dealing with the same issues of traffic and congestion. You know, the supply of people that want to be part of that city basically exceeds the capacity, it seems, of the transportation systems. And so how do we deal with that? Obviously, issues of public safety are top of mind for us here in West Pasadena, the fire department and the police department. On transportation, I do want to give a big shout out to really a great director of one of our city departments, the transportation department, and he is going to be stepping away, going to be retiring. But Fred Dock is a nationally known leader in public transportation, and he's our director of the Department of Transportation. Can we just thank Fred Dock for all that he's done? Will you say a word or two about your plans and maybe your take on, all this concern that we have about traffic and congestion?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Nice to be here. As to plans, I'm actually moving to be closer to family. Somehow we've wound up being the only branch out on the West Coast, and our daughter just has a new grandson, who's about 2 weeks old. So my wife is there already, so I'm heading back to stay married. But it's been a hard decision to choose to step down from Pasadena and to move away. I've really enjoyed being able to work with the city and all of you, in fact, in working with this, because it makes it such an interesting place to work. We have a lot of difficult things to deal with, as Mr. Madison has been saying. And I think that as a city, we do a very good job of balancing between all those different choices we have to make to be able to continue to be very livable. And that also makes what makes Pasadena very popular with people. So I think it's one of those situations we have. I know the Connecting Pasadena project and the repurposing of the 710, I think, is really a very interesting opportunity. The fact that it's been almost a privilege to be here at the point where the Pasadena Freeway is now no more, after having been involved in it for over 60 years. So it's really one of those milestone events here. And so I think there are a lot of people in the room that have been very, very active in that activity over the years here. And it's really, I think, an accomplishment at this point. So I don't know that I have a whole lot more, but I'd be glad to turn it back over. And thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Fred. I'm reminded when Bill Bogard stepped away, at his going away, I gave him a print of a New Yorker cartoon, and it showed a politician standing at the lectern with the media out before him, and he said, "I'm here today to announce that I'm giving up my family to spend more time on politics." So Fred is making the right choice in terms of his family time. So public safety, as I already mentioned, extremely important. Pete Hedema is someone we've worked with for years and years. He's our local area commander. You'll recall the police department divides the city up into 5 service areas, and we're in the west service area. So Pete, do you want to come up and chat? And as you do, I'll also introduce Bertrell Washington, the the fire chief rather, to come on up, and also John Perez, who's our police chief as well. And Bert, if you want to bring back up, since John has Pete, you're welcome to bring. Now, Bert says it's a fair fight, him and 2 of you. I don't know. Good. Chief, come on up. Great to see you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us here tonight, and I'll let Lieutenant Hedema Pete come up and talk about the crime stats. But I think before I do and give the mic to my partner here in crime at the fire department, Bert Washington, I'll talk a little bit about what's happening in the community and what we're doing. Obviously, there are some concerns we have in the community, not just with traffic, but with homeless. And we ask ourselves what we're doing with those now and into the future. And I want to make sure that everybody here understands it's a constant challenge that we have in the police department. We have discussions almost every day about trying to find long-term solutions, short-term solutions. We are looking at other cities and what they've developed. We have other type of initiatives we're researching. And the biggest issue I can tell you about traffic is really teaching people how to drive slower and better, right? Sometimes we go into the communities and we begin to write some citations, and then we come back to the neighborhood and tell them, okay, we gave out some citations. In some places they'll raise their hand and say, you gave them to the wrong people. We got them. They were for everybody else. And so it's a reminder that we all fall into this arena. Secondarily, that we really try to remind people that we're all being distracted today, whether it's your radio, and God forbid it's our phones, but there's other things happening, even with the cars that come with the screens already on there. Once you take your eyes and you're watching that thing, you're taking them off the screen. So, it's a tough place to be, but we have to start being better drivers for the younger people that are driving in the street. We have to be better drivers for people on their bicycles that are around the area. It really is about slowing down and paying attention. So it's a self-discipline. And when that goes by the wayside, you will see our motors in certain areas giving out tickets. So that's what we do. On the other side of it with the homeless, it is going to be a long haul for us to get to a place in society when we're looking at the homeless. For all the numbers that we deal with homeless, there's actually a very small percentage we deal with day in and day out. Many people who are homeless, we see them for a moment, or we may not see them at all as they bounce around, trying to find places to live with their kids or their families at times. But we do deal with what I call probably the 100, where you walk to your favorite Starbucks or your favorite store, and you see them there, and you go to another one, and that's what makes you upset. So one of the ways we're getting at these issues, last year we developed a neighborhood action team of 6 police officers. They're moving through our neighborhoods, they're identifying quality of life issues, crime issues, and trying to really do 2 things. Number one, if we need to make an arrest, we'll make that arrest. And we hope we get the cooperation in making that arrest. But many times, people are suffering from mental illness or drugs. We may not be able to keep them in custody, and we may have to transport them to a local facility just for a moment before they're released again. Many of them who say they do want homeless services, shelter services, may use them for a moment, and once again, they're out the back door rejecting those services, and we're dealing with them again. So we have to really go through this cycle of what we're trying to get through. There are other issues which require us to be on daily. Fillmore, correct? That's one of the ones, there you are. There was a concern about bicycle gangs in that area. We put our bicycle officers in that area, and they made a couple of arrests, and they interviewed everybody. They're familiar with everybody that was there. I wouldn't call them a gang per se in the evaluation I got from the sergeant, but there is more work to be done there. There is daily cleaning that we need to do. There is daily maintenance, and there are daily enforcement issues that we have to deal with. This doesn't go away in a moment. It's going to have to create habits for our homeless people of knowing what to do and knowing what not to do. As you know from our home lives, habits take a while to build. This is not going to go away overnight. We have to continually condition our homeless to understand where they can and cannot be. And it's going to be a tough travel. We wish we could put them in a facility where they get their services, they accept them, and they're better off in a few weeks. That is just not the case. Many times they reject them, and we're back where we started. Even when we do arrest them, our jails won't keep them. So it's a challenge for society. As we went into the Prop 47, Prop 57 to reduce incarceration, which is a worthy pursuit of which we should be doing. There are some challenges with it because it is keeping people out of jail, and what they do is return back to the parks where they were living before. So these are all challenges across the city. So the commitment to you is to keep these in focus, make sure we're daily reviewing our ability to get at these problems as soon as we can. But our bicycle team, hopefully in the year to come, year and a half, I could add to that team and really get at these issues, not only from a quality of life issue, but also from a nuisance issue in our communities to make sure that we resolve some of these problems. So with that, what I'll do is give it to Lieutenant Hedema, who will talk about the exact crime stats. Burglaries should be on the radar. He'll talk about, and we could answer any questions that come up.
Thanks, Chief. I just want to start with kind of a 30,000-foot shot of what the crime trends have been doing over the last several years. From 2015 on, you can see we're generally on a downtrend. The blue lines in both cases are for citywide and for this service area, which is the west service area, are somewhat on a downtrend, but almost flat. The blue is the property crimes, the red are the person crimes, the robberies, assaults, and so forth. And that stays flatter citywide. As you can see, when we get over to the west side, there's more movement up and down, especially with the property crimes. We have good months, we have bad months, and it goes back and forth. And we'll be looking at those a little bit closer in the next couple slides. This is the overall stats for District 6. It's way too many numbers to try to look at, but you can see some of the changes. And over the right, the green is the change from 2017 to 2018, and then the percentage change from average on the end. You can see a lot of areas we're doing good in, some not so well. We had a lot of DV assaults, domestic violence assaults come back recently. Those numbers are up, some thefts are up, and we've certainly, in this service area, felt the burglaries over the part of last year, and we had a very bad February. We'll see in just a minute here. Areas that, as I've worked with this group, you have let me know that these are the major concerns that come up. Residential burglaries are usually number one. Traffic issues, and Chief talked about the homeless and transient incidents that come up. Mail theft and identity theft, we had a lot of last year, and we've starting to clamp down on that, getting some arrests on that, and making a difference, but it continues. So lock up your mailboxes. And then vehicle burglaries, I've focused mostly on the Linda Vista area as we go down to the stats right now. There's not a whole lot up in that area, but we certainly get them around Old Pasadena and so forth, and that's a regular occurring issue. I'd just like to take a moment and just talk about a couple of terminology items because there's some misunderstood words that are worth talking about. Theft, of course, it's the lowest level. The petty theft, just taking something from somebody that doesn't belong to you. We go up from that. A burglary is when somebody enters a facility, a home, a business, even a car if it's locked. That's considered a burglary, but it's the entry itself. It's not the theft, it's entry. So burglaries is what we're talking about when we talk about residential burglaries in this area. Robbery is when it's in your face, somebody's got a gun, somebody holds you down, somebody forces you into something. That's what robbery is, and that's always a person to person. They're more serious because as more people get involved, the courts look on them as much more serious. We have different kinds of burglaries: vehicle, commercial, residential, and hot prowl. So hot prowl is when somebody is home at the time when somebody enters that house, and that's a more serious crime. Robberies, where this comes in a residential area, is on the occasion where we have a home invasion robbery where somebody comes in and takes over a family. Now, we don't get very many of those in Pasadena, but they do happen on occasion. Just breaking down what we did, the Council District 6 is the blue line, and I've just kind of outlined the area that we've done a lot of these stat breakdowns for the Linda Vista area. So it's kind of this upper area here. That's what we'll be looking at, the direct numbers coming up here. Okay, last year, 2018, in this area, we ended up with 16 residential burglaries. And just to compare, I want you to see how many alarm calls in that same period of time we responded to. I don't want to talk down alarms because they oftentimes are a big help, but only 2 of those burglaries had active alarms that triggered us. So 2 out of that, we had 331 of them basically were false alarms. So I just ask everybody to make it as efficient as possible. Just make sure your alarms work right, that they're not going off. We're not getting called out for nothing, but we're willing to come. But it's kind of a staggering number to look at. Up from January up through yesterday, or day before yesterday, we had 69 alarms so far this year. And the bad news is here, we've had 12 burglaries already this year in this same area we talked about. We only had 3 in January, which was going pretty well, but we ended up with 8 in February alone, and that was a concern. The turnaround is we had some arrests in early March and February, and we only had 1 in this area in the whole month of March, so that was much better than usual. So I think we were on the right track. The whole rest of the service area, the whole rest of the district was still hit pretty hard during this whole period of time. So it's not like it's going away, but we're making some movement and making some arrests that will take people off the street for a small amount of time. As the chief mentioned, they don't stay off the street very long, and we come back in and these crews keep working and going through. Good. I just want to I'm going to profile, if I can, who we see in this area committing burglaries. They're often carried out by gang members that come in from LA or other areas, both male and female participants, so don't always assume that you know what a burglar looks like out here. They'll target the affluent areas in all of the foothill communities, and this is all the way across, and it's typical. Oftentimes they'll rent newer luxury cars to fit into neighborhoods. They'll tint the windows dark, and the license plates will be removed with just a dealer, paper plate in the background. I'll talk about something in a minute on that. And the driver usually remains with the vehicle, and they'll go in and out with a very short amount of time. We call them knock-knock burglars because they oftentimes will knock on your front door, see if anybody's home. They're looking for a place where they can get in and out quick. If nobody answers, they'll come around the back and try to break a window and get in that way. They're only in for a very short period of time, in minutes, and usually the alarms, if they do go off, are, by the time we get notified, the homeowner gets notified, then the police get notified. They're gone for 10 minutes already before we even get the call. The things they're looking for are jewelry, cash, and guns. That's basically what it's down to anymore. Electronics are cheap enough now where TVs and all the things that they used to steal are just not that often. Occasionally, if there's a cell phone or some small laptop, they'll still get stolen, but this is typically what we find missing. Like I mentioned, it's usually limited to jewelry, guns, and occasional cash. Preventing access to these items if we can work with safes, if we can work for better ways of storing these things, they'll get less and less, and we'll maybe get them to stop doing this. One thing has been positive is video surveillance. Now, it doesn't stop them usually from coming in the first time, but it really helps our detectives. So the Ring doorbells, the quality video that's coming out. We just made an arrest on one of the residents had a high-speed camera put in, and we actually got a license plate that it was reading the license plate to where we got a still photo of a clear license plate. We made an arrest on that. So all these things really help. Since I've been working in what we call Service Area 1 or the West Side, when I first came here, it was many years ago, but we couldn't get anybody to call the police for anything. They say, we don't want to bother you. They're the nicest people in the world, but we need you to call. And finally, it's happening, and we're getting a lot of support from calls for people that think for people that just don't belong in the area, because and my officers don't. We can't tell the difference. Okay, DNA and fingerprint matches are leading to more arrests, and the cooperation of other agencies along here, like I say, all the foothill areas, we share the information coming across. This is I mentioned before that a lot of the burglars would just put that paper plate that says Rusnak on the back and not do. As of this year, DMV finally did something right. They came up with a temporary license, and you probably see these all over the place. They're paper, but they actually have to be printed out by the dealership or anybody that's selling a car. And this goes right into the DMV database, and my officers can now tell if this car actually belongs to the right person, if it's on this license. So when we come up here into the Linda Vista area and we'd see some car leaving the area that had just Rusnak on it and that was it, we had nothing we could do before because there's too many possibilities. Now we're 30 or 60 days into this and it's working pretty well already. They're making a lot of stops on that. Just quickly on traffic, I wanted to show you where some of our collisions and citations were. Again, this is just Linda Vista. We have more over in the other parts of this district. But as you can see, one item here, we got a lot up on Lida. And thanks to Fred Dock and his folks, they've pretty well rebuilt the whole Lida upper by Art Center to where my officers are not getting citations anymore. They're saying it really slowed it down. So I think that's a real win, at least from our standpoint. I don't know if everybody else likes it, but it's really helped that part for us. So we wrote 55 citations last year up in that same area. And this year, believe it or not, we've only had one collision in this whole area for the last 3 months. And so it's doing quite well. This is the new improvement, the island going up to Lida. Some of the things we're doing in enforcement, I'll leave you with this, but this is all District 6 across, but these are the number of footbeat patrols and traffic stops and so forth that we do. And some of the suppression things that we do. Nina was talking a little while ago about, does it really help to get private security or just, to travel in an area? It's got some deterrent effect, but it doesn't give you what you want, because they stop by, and if there is a burglar working in the area, as soon as that car goes by, they can act. Even my own officers, just roving aimlessly don't do that much good as much as if we target our campaigns very directly and go after them with surveillance and so forth. So I'll leave it with see something, say something. That's really what's helped us here. We've made a lot of arrests based on your calls. So thank you very much.
I want to just break it up a little bit and pause there, leave some time for any questions that you all have for our police department. I would say from where I sit, and I'm on the Public Safety Committee of the council, I was a prosecutor for a number of years, we get a report every day about what are called noteworthy police activity in the city. And I pay close attention to those things. And one thing I'll tell you, there's so much that never gets into the headlines, of the newspaper. One is just guns. There are way too many guns out there. And you see this when you see these horrific shootings and the like, and don't think for a minute that we can be complacent about that. I don't think a week goes by that our officers don't apprehend individuals in the community, often who themselves legally cannot possess a firearm because they're convicted felons or whatever, and they recover guns from those folks. So there are way too many guns, and we have shots fired in our city regularly, and regrettably sometimes we have people injured by gunfire or killed. So it's not in our neighborhood by and large, but it's extremely important. We are one city, and we need to address that to the extent that we can. Another big impact on public safety, in my opinion, has been the legalization of marijuana. And we're dealing on the regulatory side with sort of how do you adapt to that as a city, what are the appropriate regulations and limitations you can place. You probably saw 24 cities just filed a lawsuit against the state with regard to essentially the permission that the state is granting to deliver marijuana in cities other than the place where the establishment might be. And those cities take the position that under the legislation, cities are supposed to be able to regulate that industry, if you will, in their city limits, and they're not really able to do that when people can come in from the outside and deliver. And, it's a challenge to our officers in terms of some of the normal protocols of driving while impaired may not apply to that particular substance. And, about the only good thing that I see in it is I think people may tend to be less violent if they're using marijuana as opposed to alcohol, which does regrettably tend to have a high degree of violence for many people. And I suppose there may be some revenue benefit, but I voted no, and but it is what it is. The voters have spoken on that, so we'll do our best. In terms of the homeless, it really is not it threatens our public safety, and it threatens pretty much everything we're trying to do as a city, but by and large, they're not criminal problems. There really are mental health and substance abuse. And Catherine Barger, who's our supervisor, I was with her on Sunday at the Ronald McDonald House Walk for Kids. She brought forward a proposal. There's a provision under the law that says that if you are a danger to yourself or others, then you can be held and essentially put into some environment where you'll be protected. And she proposed to change that to add, and you're unable to care for yourself. If you're unable to care for yourself, which many of these people that you see sleeping in the park and what have you are in that boat. It hasn't been adopted yet, but we'll see. So are there questions that are police related? And then we'll move to the fire department and Chief Washington. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so I wouldn't say nothing's been done, because I know I have seen motor officers out there trying to enforce, but there is a limit to our resources. But Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, clearly we need to do more out there if you're still seeing the problem. We've been out there doing some of the enforcement. We have to make sure we hit the right time, so if we're missing some of this, I'd appreciate an email, if you can, to me, just giving me the exact times and dates you see it at its highest frequency. If you tell me all day, it's kind of hard to get to that. What times? Okay. Until what time of night? Okay. Let's see what we could do with that, and hold me accountable to what we could do from here, okay? Thank you.
Any other questions that are police related? Yes, sir. I don't think so.
Well, I can just tell you I think the initial response to it has been to check the median area, and I was up there this morning and looked at it, and obviously when it goes up toward Art Center beyond that and the curves, there's still a propensity for that problem, and also down below. So I'll make sure that the traffic officers know that, and we don't just look at the area that got cleaned up, but spread it out. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Okay, so question about social media
We
and
are
the
on
police
so-
department. Can
We
you?
are on social media, we are increasing it, we're getting better at it.
I just don't
Yeah,
see much.
and we try to limit it to when there is a need. There's many times a helicopter might be up in the air, and they might just be looking at a ringing alarm. It's hard to really put that out, okay, they would probably overdo it. So we are trying to balance it. We are looking at ways of being better at our social media as well, to try to find the perfect balance. You don't want to know about every false alarm in the area when the helicopter is there, but you do want to know about a burglary or somebody we're looking for in the area. That becomes important, and we understand that part.
Sirens, or we hear a lot of helicopters, just something, or, you know.
Absolutely.
Or it's okay.
Yeah, we are in fact upping our usage and trying to better it in the right area. So hopefully next time we see each other, you could say you're getting a little bit better. All right?
I'll check on you.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, then, Bruce, one more question for public safety or police department?
This is not probably a place for the speed bump discussion, but definitely for the enforcement to make sure people slow down. We'll get there. So next time we talk, we'll see how that goes as well. Some of you may complain about the tickets, as I said before.
Okay, I want to move on, so maybe one more question here for the police. Please, yes.
Two things. Number one, yes, please do call us when people are in your home. You're going to use them, and all of a sudden you're missing something. You believe they may have, committed a theft inside your home. Please notify us right away of that. And anytime you use people in your homes, try to do the best vetting you can. Let your neighbors know who's going to be there. Bounce it off somebody so you're really getting some good advice back. Number two, you should have seen an increase in some of our enforcement in the area, and we do have what we call surveillances occurring in your neighborhoods, have been occurring. I talked to our detectives earlier today, and so you won't see some of that policing activity, but it's there. What I ask of you, lighting is great. Make sure at nighttime you're closing up your windows. When you're gone, bring your trash cans in, pick up the mail, make sure nothing's in the mailbox. Make sure you communicate with one another when you go on vacation. Really learn to build a network around you. When you come in and out of your house, take a moment to drive out and drive your block and see what's going on in the neighborhood, and then leave on your tour. But make sure you guys are really connecting to your neighborhood. Sometimes music in the backyard, music in the house gives people the belief somebody's in the home. So use some shock and awe if you have to give yourself that security when you're gone or when you are home. All right? So we're here for you. Call us as you need to. We also go out and do home inspections as needed with cameras and things like that. So reach out to us. Myself and Lieutenant Clausen did a couple last week ourselves. We drove out to a couple of homes up in Linda Vista, and we walked the neighborhoods and gave them some advice on where to put the cameras. So we'll make time for you like that to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put the chief on the spot here, but we're coming up on our budget cycle, and I'm going to push to hire some additional police officers. We're not at full strength right now, and we need more officers. So thank you. So Burt Washington, come on up, Chief Washington, and tell us about fire and brush clearance. I'm sure is going to be top of mind right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. All right. Well, just as we get started, and I'd like to acknowledge Deputy Chiefs Brian Frieders and John Troutwine, who are here with me from Pasadena Fire Department. And gentlemen, if you'd like to join me, there might be some questions you can help me answer. So I just wanted to speak with you a little bit about brush clearance. Really, generally, we start fighting fires right now. You know, we saw in November of 2018 some of the worst fires that this state has ever seen. And the way that we really get ahead of that is we start fighting the fires now. How do we do that? We do that in partnership with each and every one of you. And I tell you, the community, the city of Pasadena, the residents that live here, you all have done a wonderful job. You've done an excellent job. Again, you've seen some fires throughout this state and even specifically in the Los Angeles region. And fortunately, we've been very blessed that it has not touched the community the way it has some others. But I just want to speak with you briefly about a few things that you can do. And one, I'm sure you've heard this. If you haven't, please pay a little bit of attention to it and tell a friend, ready, set, go. So you want to make sure that your home is ready. You want to make sure that you have a defensible space. And that's you're clearing brush, you're clearing trees from around your home. You're keeping it nice and tidy because fire likes dry vegetation so that it can burn more. So if you keep the area around your home clear, you're going to do us a great help in making sure that your home does not catch fire and catch other homes on fire. And then you want to be set. You want to get ready and you want to create a personal wildfire action plan. And I'm going to show you an app that you can download that will also help you and guide you in setting up an action plan. And then you're going to want to go. So when the police department, and again, we are very fortunate to have the police department that we have. We have some great public safety partners. I hope you learned a lot from what you heard today, and they're going to be right next to us, working very diligently to help you get out when you need to get out. And so that is one of the most important parts, is when we say go, that you already have your things packed and ready to go because you've gone through this process of ready, set, go. And when we give the word, all you have to do is pick up and go. Anything that you have is not as valuable, and I'm sure you have many things that are dear to your heart, but nothing is as valuable as your life. So we really need you to go when we ask you to go. So this is the app that I was speaking about, Cal Fire Ready for Wildfire app. This is something that you can download onto your smartphone. And so if you do that, you'll see Ready, Set, Go as it's illustrated here. And you click on Set, and it will take you through some ways that you can set up an action plan. It's very simple. So this is what we're anticipating. The state has gone through another series of looking at hazard zones for wildfire, and we are expecting that we're going to have even more homes in the very high hazard zone as the state comes out with this plan. So what we're doing now, which is what we do every single year, we're sending mailers out. We're trying to get the word out that the inspection time is now beginning. It started actually April 1st. So you should see firefighters are going to start coming to your home to see if you cleared your brush. Of course, for that fire inspection that they do, there's going to be no fee, absolutely no fee for that fire inspection for those of you that live in the very high hazard zone. We just want to notify you if you do need to clear more brush. Now, if we have to come back, then there's a fee. So again, the inspections are going to be done between April 1st and June 1st. Our firefighters do an awesome job, again, not just fighting fires, not just doing emergency medical services and a variety of other services, but this is one of the main parts of their job. And again, it's what I refer to as they're fighting the fires before they occur. So we're giving you plenty of information on the mailers, door hangers, and on our website. And again, if you have any questions about that at any given time, we certainly want you to give us a call. So something else, one of the ways that we tell you to go is through mass notification. So we've recently changed the mass notification system that we have. Before it was mostly for an extreme emergency or if we're going to red flag. But now we have a very broad system in which we can still notify you when these urgent incidents occur. but we can also notify you on more random incidents, such as this great feedback that you gave us with your question. If you just want some information about what's going on, we have a host of options. If you go to our website and you look for Pleas, PLEAS, is what you sign up for to be in our mass notification system. So this will be the fire department front page, right under the flag, which is green at this time, which is great. You'll see that red button, and you click on the button, and then that'll take you to the next page. And this is the next page, again, Pasadena Local Emergency Alert System, Please, and it'll ask you if you want to register for Please. And so then you click on that button, and it takes you to this page. Now, this page here is set up for if you already have an account and you want to make some adjustments. You want to add numbers, you want to add locations of where you live, and I'll explain just a little bit more of that in just a moment. But if you're new, then you want to click on that link, Sign Up. So this next page is where you sign up. Again, you're going to put your name. All this information is confidential. All right. We don't share this information. We don't sell it, of course. This is city government information. So you put your information in, and you give us an email, and then of course it's going to do its thing where it's going to send you something and ask you to confirm a few different things. Okay, and then it'll go to the next page, where really the next series of pages are about where you live. Because if something's happening in your neighborhood and you want to get that information, then when we ask our mass notification system to send out an alert, we can narrow it to specific neighborhoods, blocks, addresses, and things like that. So we're not sending information out to the entire city. We're narrowing it to the people that really need to know. Okay, so you can put a series of phone numbers, you can put email addresses in. There's a variety of ways in which you can be notified. Landline, cell phone, again, a variety, text message, a variety of ways. You get to choose, and you can always come back in and adjust it if it's not working for you the way that you'd like it to work for you. All right, so I think that's about it. Again, ready, set, go. And when we ask you to go, this is how you can get the word through our mass notification system, social media, and a host of other things that we have in place.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Questions for the fire department? Yes. We have the deputies. Yes.
Have you gone and looked at the arroyo and the areas there and how much of a fire hazard that is to those of us that live near that wonderful vegetation?
Yes.
All the time, but I'll let the chief speak to that. Yes.
Yes, and I'll ask, I know Deputy Chief Frieders was just working with our Public Works Department to work on that. The short answer is yes. We did a major cleanup last year, and as a matter of fact, we were just speaking, we have a couple of our firefighters that are out on the patrol. When you see the kind of small-looking fire truck, they're going out to survey more specifically. So yes, we do look at the lower arroyo and all around in the arroyo, and we have a variety of partnerships with our Public Works Forestry Division, and we clean up those spaces. And we also have some special ones that we've done with the police department as we go in and we look at various encampments, and we do a lot of work to clear those out because we've experienced a series of fires related to encampments.
Yes, sir.
I hope this is the right people to ask, but could you give us an update on the suicide prevention efforts for the Colorado Street?
Yeah, actually, the question is about the suicide initiative to stop the suicides at the Colorado Street Bridge. And actually, that's Public Works, and they are coming forward, I understand. Where's my city manager, Steve? When will we see that?
Wednesday the 17th, the public safety training. It's a
Yeah.
recommendation to award contract, which is fine.
And from there, it'll go to the city council as appropriate. But yeah, it's an important issue. So, yes.
Without the website and the please sign up thing, how would you notify people if they had to leave in a hurry? Do you go door to door?
Make sure everybody heard the question. Question is, without the website or the reverse 911, how would you notify the community to evacuate?
Yes. Yes, and again, I'm fortunate to have deputy chiefs that are doing a lot of great work. So we have a variety of ways of doing it. I'll just kind of tee it up a bit, and maybe Chief Troutwine will touch more on it. But we will actually go door to door. And again, our partnership with law and enforcement, the police and the LA County sheriffs, we will go door to door. But we want to get to you much faster than that. So it's social media, and then we're also working on a WIA, which is a wireless electronic alerting system, where we can push something out to your phone just like that. Specifically from us. At this particular time, we have to go through the sheriff's office, but we're working on it where we can have our own, where we can push it out right now. And so Chief Troutwine is working on that for us.
I do want to just echo the comment about the Arroyo. That's sort of our nightmare in West Pasadena, would be a windy day or night like this, and a fire starts and comes down the Arroyo. Please, Chief. Yeah.
If I could just add to that too. So what we're finding when we look at all these large wildland fires that sweep through our areas quickly, there's really multiple ways that we want to notify you. So, as the chief spoke, we have multiple ways to do that. But what I would encourage everyone to do, because, news media, radio, through wireless emergency alert, through mass notification, through please when you opt in for that. So we're going to exercise all that by police officers, firefighters in the street, knocking on your door, by PA, et cetera. But what I want to encourage you, as we move towards wildland season, be really aware of the weather. So make a note of the weather and watch the news media and watch the weather and look at the trends coming, so you can kind of in your mind start to prepare. Because if you're completely unaware of what's going on around you, it doesn't matter how we try to notify you, you might miss that. So kind of just gear yourself up as you see that weather trend. When you know there's changes in the weather and things are looking kind of bad, just be super aware and ready and prepare, like the presentation showed. Yeah.
So the question was, if there's someone who doesn't have the capability of hearing or has some sort of a disability that would preclude them from actually hearing an alert, a knock on a door, et cetera, is there a way to register someone who has that special need? And the answer is yes. We have a whole list of access to functional needs folks that have, whether they're invalid, whether they're not ambulatory, whether they're hearing impaired. And that's something you can register through the health department and through the county health department. And they send us a list every week or every 2 weeks of all the access to functional needs that are in danger and that might have a potential issue. The other thing I just want to say very quickly, just to answer your question about the Arroyo and the so-called nightmare that you've characterized it as, one of the things that we have had this year as a blessing is the rain, right? And the rain is certainly something that we've needed for a long time. The consequence to rain is this grass that grows about this tall, and in the summertime it's going to cure. And as you know from some of the catastrophic wildfires that have occurred across the nation and specifically in California, that's how fires communicate. So what we're doing, and this is the importance of the vegetation management program, is we're closely watching every part of this area and the Hastings Ranch area to make sure that we're getting compliance with that vegetation management. You'll see tonight, for example, there's some pretty gusty winds. You may have seen me walk out and over here a few times, and what I'm doing is I'm actually monitoring the wind at the Arroyo here, and I've got firefighters that are at Station 38 and Station 39 and Station 37 that are driving your districts to make sure that they're monitoring the wind and the humidity to make sure that we're not having any kind of an issue. So what we do is we engage a patrol, that little patrol that the chief talked about. They're going to drive around tonight till midnight until the wind starts to die down, making sure that if there is an encampment that starts a fire, that we're right on top of it. And that's what your fire department does.
A couple of things that were sort of covered in passing there. We have 3 fire stations in our city council district. So 8 stations citywide, 7 city council districts, and we have 3 of them. Now that's really about topography and geography. 38 in Linda Vista, 39 in San Rafael Hills, and then 31 over by Central Park. And we're certainly committed to keeping all of those fire stations, because those neighborhood fire stations are super important when we talk about things like this. And some of those buildings are in need of some reinvestment. And so we're constantly, as a council, especially at budget time, grappling with that. How do we come up with a capital budget that'll be able to keep those fire stations safe and functional for a modern fire department. The other thing that we're talking about without talking about is climate change. And we really have to take a more prominent role in Pasadena. Regrettably, the national leaders really are not taking leadership on that. The governor, the new governors, I commend him and the last governor as well, but we've got to do more in Pasadena, and we are. You probably saw that we just approved a whole bunch of electric chargers for cars, and you're going to see our utility doing a lot more in terms of trying to motivate people and move to a cleaner form of energy for Pasadena. So, yes.
Is it advisable to put sprinklers on your roof?
Sprinklers on your roof.
Has absolutely no benefit whatsoever.
It is recommended in some areas.
That's not something the fire department would recommend at all.
Okay. Yes, Myra. I'm so sorry. Hi.
Yeah. Yes, we will do our annual spraying.
Well, in the process, would you make sure they don't spray all my vegetation? Everything turned white.
Okay.
And I don't think it was very good for my plants, my foliage. So, I appreciate that.
This year, I'm going to ride along with them to make sure they don't get your yard. All right?
I heard him.
The spraying's great, but it's not a substitute for all of the other things, the brush clearance and being alert. So, okay, I'm mindful of the time, and I really want to get a couple of quick presentations in from David Reyes and Daryl Dunn. So thank you to our firefighters. We really appreciate all you do. Thank you. And I'm going to give David Reyes, who's our terrific director of planning and community development, 3 minutes to talk about building and protecting neighborhoods. Piece of cake, right, David? Come on up. David Reyes.
Thank you, Councilmember Madison, and thank you all for having me. I will be quick, but I have a couple of slides to present. I want to talk big picture and then talk about some of the state legislation that's going on. So from a big picture perspective, what our department is working on, of course, we have to process applications that come in. Part of our daily workload is developers submit projects, we process them, make sure they comply with code, we issue building permits. I have code enforcement in the shop. We also have arts and culture. So our department has a little bit of everything. But with respect to policy and setting the sort of stage for the future of Pasadena with respect to development, we have a general plan that the City Council adopted in August of 2015. We're now working on all 8 specific plans to update them and to make sure that they are consistent with the general plan. It is very important in the city of Pasadena. I'm going to give some background. If you would just go forward just a little bit. Mr. Whedon. Good. Thank you, Jens. No problem. And as that is moving or not, I will keep talking because it's important that when we speak about sort of the future, the growth of the city, that's not really mine, but I could talk about that too. I can tie it in. So the Planning and Community Development Department with updates with respect to updates of the specific plans, we actually, and partly due to all of you and the residents of the city, in the late 80s we had, yeah, that's the one, thank you. There was a lot of discussion about growth in the city and how it should be done because the state does impose requirements on each city. There should be growth. There needs to be a certain amount of growth. And I'm going to talk about how they do that and what our response has been. In the 1980s, late 80s, what we decided to do as a city was develop specific plans. And what you see on the screen are the 8 specific plans in the city. And they are, if we go back just for 1 second, what you don't see is the white areas, which are for the most part, single-family homes. This is our single-family neighborhoods that are designed to be protected through the location and layout of our specific plans, and this is where focused growth is designed to go. We go to the next slide. As we update our specific plans, what we're really looking at is private property. We don't look at the roads. The sidewalks are not ours. But the zoning, the Planning Community Development Department, we have private property and what we call the pedestrian zone. So we can make buildings set back, create a better pedestrian environment. And as we look to update the plans, what we've done is we've already had 2 rounds of workshop. The first one was done in the summer, and we had about 500 participants citywide. We had about 2,000 online submissions, if you will. And we've had a good participation, a good group, a good turnout, especially from this council district. As we move forward in terms of the process, what we're looking to do is, you see we're about halfway through in 2021, we would look to bring to city council for adoption all of the revised plans. One of the things that we're doing, not only are we getting input from the community, but we're also making sure that we're aware and abreast of all state laws, because we want to make sure that we don't run afoul of those. We don't want to get in trouble, but at the same time, we want to make sure we understand what's happening so that we can plan appropriately. And as you hear in the presentation, you're going to hear some more about that. So what we've done with the first round was really solicit some input. Generally, what we're doing with the second round, which we're in right now, is actually presenting plans to the city, to the residents, and we're saying, here's what we think we heard, here's what the general plan says, here's how we'd like to implement that, what do you think? And so we're in the middle of this process. The next meeting is actually Thursday night. It's on Fair Oaks and Orange Grove, and it's at the Robinson Community Center. You see the details here. At the end of this, you'll see where the website is, where you can get all of the information, and register so that you can get email updates of all of the activities we have. North Lake is at the end of May. So that's sort of the big picture of what we're doing in terms of that process. I want to talk a little bit why that's so important. And I just need 2 more minutes, and I'll go very quickly, Councilmember. So this was talked about last night, but the planning that I just talked about in terms of the resident engagement, in terms of the general plan that was adopted, there were over 300 public meetings. And the planning that Pasadena does, and I've worked for the cities of Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Malibu, private sector, city of Los Angeles. I've been with the city 7 years, and this is a place that takes planning seriously. And the roots of planning go back to the early 20s, and this is the Bennett plan that you've heard about or talked about. But the reality is that planning has its roots in Pasadena. As we go forward, and why it's so important, this is the grand bargain. This is the yellow areas represent the single-family zones, and in and around it, you see where we've allotted development, where it's supposed to go in the central district, in the commercial neighborhoods, in the commercial corridors. That's where we want our growth to go. We have to grow. We have to acknowledge that there is a statewide crisis. We don't have to grow as much as the state would like us to grow. And in order to prevent that, we have to continue to plan the right way to protect the single-family residences and the residential neighborhoods, and allow growth to happen in and along the corridors. And as we go forward, I want to share what we've done, because the policies and plans that have been put in place and agreed to by the residents and voted upon by the city council here, there's a lot of discussion about Pasadena being NIMBY. And the reality is that we do our fair share. We do more than our fair share, and the reality is that the state requirements in terms of housing production, it's called the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA numbers. And what was required for the city of Pasadena is the first column at the bottom. The total number is 1,300 units. What we've produced so far is over 2,000 units. We've produced 2,000 units. We need to do better on the affordable housing. We do, and we're getting there. We have housing production in terms of permits that have not been issued, but ones we've approved, another 2,700. And what's really important as we go to the next slide is where we're producing these units. The units are going where they're supposed to go. Their units are going in and around TOD stations. We talked about climate change. This is where the units need to be produced. Our TOD, which is our transit-oriented development, we have our train stations, and you see those in the circles there. 87% of our units are built and approved there. And that's actually tremendous. And in fact, when you look at some of the requirements that we have in our TODs with respect to parking reductions and forcing people to get transit passes, we are about a 1-to-1 in terms of jobs produced and housing units produced. We're 1.07. And so this is what real planning is. We are thinking about the regional situation, we're thinking about the state situation, and we're still trying to protect the residents. The balancing act that you always hear about is real, and it's not easy. Some people would like zero growth. Some people would like unfettered growth. The reality is that we need to do a really good job of ensuring that the state doesn't ramrod development patterns that would completely obliterate what we do for planning. And if we go to the next slide, what's really important here, and actually go to the next one. So there's a bill, it's SB 50. And what it would do is it would take all of our transit stations, all of our high quality bus lines, and it would produce basically a quarter mile around each one of those and say you can do multifamily development anywhere within those zones. There are some limited protections for single family zones. And you see how the map actually extends into the single family zones. I am going, along with Julie Gutierrez on April 24th, to lobby against this bill because we think that it's not a good idea. And if we go back to the previous slide, I was there 3 weeks ago lobbying. I met with Senator Portantino. Thank you, Dominic. We met with Assemblymember Holden. We met with Senator Wiener, the proponent of the bill. And what we're proposing, we believe that the League of California Cities will get on board with, and that there will be enough support that SB 50 will not pass unless amended. And the amendments that we need are really about good planning. And if these amendments go forward as we're proposing, and the mayor has signed, and the city council has blessed, we will be protected from the single family intrusion. And so it's really important that we keep that stuff in mind.
Rush. So I did overlook Dr. Go from our public health department, and I wanted her to just say a word. I know there are some concerns about various things. Dr. Go, come on up. And are we going to all be carried away by large mosquitoes or something? Will you please?
We'll address that another meeting. Okay. Good evening. I'm Ying Go. I am a physician, and I am the health officer for the city of Pasadena, which means that my team has the authority, responsibility to investigate and respond to and control communicable diseases. So if you ever hear from us or your friends or family hear from us, please talk to us. That is the only way we can investigate those cases. In addition, I get to share information with the community about a whole variety of topics relating to human health. And tonight I have a little bit of information for you about air pollution. It is a very broad topic, so I can just offer some high-level information in the next 10 minutes. And please, Councilmember, let me know if we're going over. So over history, we have recognized that there are severe negative impacts of air pollution on human health. And some dramatic events have demonstrated this. This is the London smog disaster of 1952, in which over 4 days, the city of London saw a dense smog that was containing some toxic sulfur dioxide that could not dissipate from the city and resulted in thousands and thousands of excess deaths. Next slide. In addition, in LA, here are some historical photos from the 40s and 50s. You can see people coping with the situation with masks. There's City Hall. Next slide. And in Pasadena, there was a protest with 6,000 people against the issue of smog, and someone dealing with finding their own solutions with a canister of pure, crystal clear air on their back. So this area, the LA area, has been known as the Bay of Smokes since the 1542 when Cabrillo named it that, because there is a natural phenomenon of the way the basin is shaped, the mountains, that the air does collect. And over the decades, people have come to realize that there are things that we can do to reduce our exposure to particulate matter and pollutants by regulating industry, by realizing that our motor vehicles actually do contribute to poor lung health and creating regulations as a result. So in 1970, at a national level, the Clean Air Act defined what are called criteria air pollutants. Those are ozone, particulate matter, or PM, lead, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. And these chemicals have negative impacts on your health. Today we'll be focusing on particulate matter. In California, our state actually passed standards that predate the national standards. And you'll note that our standards are actually stricter than the national standards and match the World Health Organization's recommendations. So the agencies in California that are responsible for enforcing and creating regulations for standards for motor vehicle emissions and for stationary sources of emissions are the California Air Resources Board and also the South Coast Air Quality Management District locally. And so these are our public health partners. We work with them because they're the specialists on air quality. And so focusing on particulate matter, there was I believe, a question that was brought up, and so it was requested that I talk a little bit about this. What is particulate matter? It's solid or liquid particles that are found suspended in the air. They're ubiquitous, they're everywhere. And they're natural and man-made sources. Even dirt, mold, pollen, that's particulate matter. Around the World Health Organization has put out a call for this really serious problem because there are 3 billion people in the world who are actually exposed in their homes to high levels of indoor pollutants, and that's because they use fuels that emit really dangerous pollutants within their homes. And so there are 2 categories of particulate matter, PM10 and PM2.5, that have standards. And the 10 and the 2.5 refer to microns. I'll show you a graphic in a minute. The PM10 includes the 2.5 because the 2.5 microns is smaller than the 10. And they're all small enough to reach your respiratory tract. The PM2.5 can go all the way to your alveoli. Larger dust particles are filtered out by your upper airway. And the smaller particles can actually penetrate deep into your lung passages and enter your bloodstream, your lymphatic system, and maybe disseminate across to other parts of your body. So here's a human hair, and the blue circles are an approximation of the size of what PM10, the diameter of a PM10 particle, and then the PM2.5 is even smaller. It's really only observable by a microscope. So big picture overall, in evaluating the literature, there appears to be a small but consistent and significant effect of particulate matter on human health, a negative effect. And you can continue. The EPA, this is a chart from the EPA that really evaluates the epidemiological literature. So you can see that there are long-term exposures, short-term exposures, and what the effects might be, how strong the association is it a causal association? And you'll see that for cardiovascular and respiratory effects, there are causal associations. There's also new evidence coming out about the effects on the developing fetus that will result in premature birth and also low birth weight. So we can probably skip the next 2. The summary about the cardiopulmonary effects is that it's really a mechanism of inflammation that occurs. It can contribute to coronary artery disease and more coagulation. You can imagine that's bad in your blood vessels that are supplying your heart with oxygen. And so you'll see increased mortality, increased cardiovascular events. You'll see increased asthma and bronchitis, all these cardiopulmonary symptoms that are associated with particulate matter. If you can go back one slide. So what we see and the way we look at this is that there are sensitive populations that are affected first. So those populations include people who have heart and lung disease, asthma, COPD, coronary disease, or smoking, for example. Older adults who might have some of these conditions or other comorbidities and who might not be able to clear the particulate matter as well. And then, of course, children who have higher activity levels. They may be outside more. They breathe more volume of air per minute than adults, and they have more surface area of their lungs compared to their body size, so they're more at risk. And the idea so this is a general concept about exposure to risks, and whether it's environmental or infectious, that really helps people to think about and quantify risk and what steps they should take. In this case, the mode of exposure is inhalation, but the factors that determine how much you're exposed are the intensity, which is the concentration of the contact, the frequency, how often the exposure occurs, and the duration, the length of time of the exposure. And so those are really important to keep in mind. So if you think about it that way, people who have occupational exposures are really most at risk. And things that you might do like outdoor exercise, exerting yourself in high intensity might put you at risk as well. So we can probably skip through the traffic emissions. That's great. Continue, please. So I just want to give you some recommendations on what you should do. I think there are a lot of suggestions on an individual level, but also at a policy level. And this is the air quality index chart on airnow.gov. I hope you're familiar with this. This is where you can go to determine what the air quality is today in your neighborhood. And that can inform your decisions on what kind of activity you will do. So avoiding strenuous exercise during times of poor air quality, avoiding exercise near freeways during peak traffic, and I think there are measures to keep your indoor air quality healthier. Even things like not using wood-burning fireplaces. You're exposing yourself to particulate matter by burning wood. And then there are, at a policy level, there are many steps, for example, for schools, that schools can take to reduce exposure for kids to particulate matter. This is our public health system. You'll see the public health department in the middle because it's from our perspective, but you'll see many, many other agencies, including the AQMD and the California Air Resources Board, as part of that public health system to keep us all healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm really proud of our public health department. There are only 3 cities in the whole state that have a city public health department. You can't answer. Anybody know what the other 2 are? Yep, Berkeley's one of them, and wow, see, educated audience. I do also want to share with you that Michael Johnson, the current head of the public health, the director of public health, is retiring, and Dr. Go is taking his place as both the director and the health officer. So give it up for Dr. O. Thank you so much. Okay, Nina, I don't think we have time unless you have real quick question. Well, Daryl, can you come on up? Well, yeah. So, Nina, can I have folks see you about getting involved in LVAA if they're interested in those issues? Great. Thank you. Thank you. Before I turn to Daryl, I just want to give a shout out to Danny Hess and Chevelle Devine from KPAS, who are here. And he seems to have left his post, but Jens Wyden, Chief Revenue Officer. Oh, there you are. Well, thank you. You're an expensive slideshow operator. But so quickly, Daryl Dunn, and I thank you for your patience. We'll be real quick. If you can just update us on the bowl. Thank you.
All right, cool. Okay, great. Thanks for coming. Hope you get to enjoy some tacos in Brookside. We do want this to be a neighborhood place, so please come back. I was going to talk about financials and some major challenges we have, which are real, but we'll save that for a future meeting. Events that are coming up, just so you're aware of, and Jen's going to talk a little bit more, is big stuff. In this summer, it's going to be a short summer because we have events really in just May and June. In May, we have a band called BTS, and that's called K-pop. They're the world's most popular band today. It's going to be 2 days, May 4th and 5th, and it's going to be it's like a boy band. You're going to see tens of thousands of girls screaming for the band, and you have no idea. Think of the Beatles times like 4, and that's BTS. It's true. And they're going to be rehearsing pretty much that week. You shouldn't hear too much until the closer you get to Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of a thing, sort of usual. We were supposed to have another concert the following week, but we need the doctor to help our friend Mick Jagger because he had a little incident. So we're hoping, though, he'll be back late summer, early fall in the Stones. And then in June, we have an event called Gold Cup. It's a soccer doubleheader. It involves Mexico. Nothing that you haven't seen before, but it'll be a big event. And then the 4th of July, we have to work out some details on, but it's going to be the 4th of July. And that's really it for the summer. So it's going to be a slow summer. Again, the next time we'll talk about our financial challenges, but that's one of the reasons why, because we aren't having events after the 4th of July. But then Jens Wyden, what Jens does is he pretty much books our events, and the growth of our facility really has been in minor events and small stuff. So Jens, why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, I'm going to make friends with Steve. I'll be as fast as possible. So I have a couple words, and then we have a quick video. But to Daryl's point, this summer's sort of slow for us for major events, and so we're really focusing on smaller, minor events. And there were two in particular that we wanted to run by the community here, because there really are events that we hope the community will embrace. The first one is called Final Fridays, and it takes place the last Friday of every month, actually on the golf course right outside of Lot K there. We had our first one this past month, and we had about 1,500 people out. Very family-friendly event. It's a food truck festival, and we hope that you all come out for that, and we have a little recap video on that. And then the second one is called Apollo 11, and it's actually a traveling, touring production that's going to set up at the Rose Bowl this summer. They're going to start building it out at the end of May, and then the shows run July and August. And it's celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. So I'll let the videos do a better job of discussing them than I can.
This July,
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
50 years from that historic day, witness the moment history was made as Apollo 11, an immersive 360-degree adventure, takes you on the greatest journey our planet has ever seen.
All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
The theatrical premiere of the year. Staged in a groundbreaking, purpose-built venue, Apollo 11 is a truly immersive live show, performed by a full cast, surrounded by 40,000 square feet of stunning 360-degree video projection, brought to life by world-class theater design, a full orchestral score, and life-size rockets. Come with us on the most dangerous mission ever taken. It took 400,000 heroes to send us to the moon. This is one man's incredible journey, told through the eyes of Ben, a retired aerospace engineer, and granddaughter Sydney. The inspirational story from NASA's Mission Control, a story of the vision, teamwork, and amazing technology behind those who dared to dream. We stood then, as now, on the dawn of a new technological era. Touring 18 North American cities, brought to you by a world-class creative team whose credits include global concerts, West End, Broadway, and Las Vegas shows and spectaculars.
lot of people know the story of Apollo 11. They know that 3 men went to the moon and 2 of them walked on the moon. And what we're hoping to do is expand on that story and tell what is essentially the untold story of what it took to get that flight to the moon. This show is not like a movie at all. It's an original story presented in a custom-built space with a full cast, state-of-the-art projections, and the most dramatic tale you've ever seen. From the moment the audience walks into the space, they are going to be transported to another world.
A groundbreaking, unmissable show that has to be seen to be believed. Apollo 11, live on stage in the Lunar Dome, launching at the Rose Bowl July 5th. It's time to relive the proudest moment of human history. It's time to tell their story, to find out what happens next with ours.
Okay, thank you so much, especially for being so patient. I'm going to stick around. If you want to chat, come on up. Thank you.